All right, hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Four Mortal Coils podcast. We are here gathered once again in your gracious presence to talk about another topic. And today it's a very special one, at least to me, although I know that my co-hosts here will definitely be fond of the topic at hand today. And that topic is none other than what gives your life meaning? Now, before I go any further, I will say that this episode will contain more than a few references, more than likely, to suicide. So if you're a little sensitive to that kind of subject, I'm just giving a heads up now, because there's a lot to do with that literature-wise. We'll say that a lot has been written in regards to suicide when we talk about meaning, or at least I know the conversation will go that way. So just for your aid, for your knowledge, that will definitely come up. I will definitely be bringing it up. But again, what gives your life meaning? And this is a direct question to my co-hosts, who I'm joined by today, Trevor and Stephen, respectively. Trevor's the one with the mustache, and Stephen is the one where all his hair has migrated to the bottom part of his head. But yeah. So today I'm trying to keep the episode a little fluid, a little open, because I think this is such a subjective question. Like, it can go anywhere. You could say that there is a very particular meaning in life. You could say that there is no meaning in life. Very open-ended. And so that's where I want to start today. But before we do, don't forget that you yourself, listener, can go into our comments section and tell us what you think gives your life meaning, or what the meaning of life is, capital THE. We would love to know. We do read the comments. And if you're really feeling it, if you're really just wanting to share the good news in whatever form that takes for you, we do also have a Discord channel that you can join and, share whatever, text and media and other things that interest you. So without further ado, I will pass it along to whoever would like to share first. Just kind of give your general opinion on meaning in life. Maybe you have a particular perspective on what that word means, or how it pertains to the conversation, whether or not it exists, so on and so forth. So
I'll go second. Give Trevor the chance to go last, right?
Damn it! I swear to God, I thought Steven was about to go like, "Oh, I'd like to," and then he fucking threw me right under the fucking bus.
No.
He threw my entire head directly underneath the fucking.
No, like I say, I know you'd probably like to go last, right?
That's in this instance.
So should I go first? Is that what we're saying?
Well,
no,
I can say some things. I got some ideas.
Okay.
But okay, I lament, because I was thinking like that's all right. So, what gives your life meaning? So, I'm afraid I can't just go off and give an answer like outright, like an initial assertion. It would take too much time. So the first thing I would say is just to sort of lay out the platform in front of us as to what I suspect this conversation is going to become, just so our audience can better engage with us and understand where this is going to go. If I had to guess, I would see the three of us, all three of us, are going to make some sort of argument where there is no such thing as a THE all caps meaning of existence. There is nothing like that. Or at the very least, that's where my initial first. If you catch me on the street and grab me by the belt and the shirt, and you go, "What is the meaning of life?" I would say it's not that simple. It's not. There's not one meaning of life, But
if Ray Comfort came up to you and asked you about, who made the book, if there was no bookmaker, or if who painted the picture, if there was no,
yeah. It's a bit like so that story. So who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? What's his name? Anyway, in that book, son of a bitch.
That's a good question. I'll find out. Keep.
All right. Well, in that book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, wonderful book. I listened to it on audiobook because anyway, it was incredible. There's this question in there. There's a scene where there's this really powerful, almighty AI that is deep thought, something to that effect. who is asked this question. Well, what is the meaning of everything? The way it was posed was itself
The
really
universe,
silly.
everything, and
Yeah, it was a
you
really,
know,
really stupid question, and I'm preempting what I'm going to say here, but they said it in a silly way. They're like, what is the meaning of life? Essentially, and they went in and they asked it. They asked this deep thought, and deep thought went, I'm gonna have to think about that. Come back in 8 million years, and they looked at each other, went, what? And then 8 million years goes by, and then like the great ancestors, like people that come after that walk up the thing and go, deep thought, do you have an answer for us? And they go, yes, but you're not gonna like it. What is the meaning of life? Deep thought. And deep thought goes, 42, which all of y'all already, or at least you two assholes already know. So what is the moral of that story? What does that even mean? Well, you can draw whatever you want out of it, I suppose. But what I draw out
much
of it,
like life.
much, god fucking damn it,
Yeah.
it's a recursive feedback loop here. It's all just going to relate to that. Truly, I mean, we've really hit the meta of questions because everything recursively comes back to what this topic is. Like you could talk about anything here, but so it comes back to what's the meaning of that? Why 42? Why all this? Why all that? Well, it goes to show that, well, it wasn't a very good question now, was it? And that's what it comes down to. It's whenever you exist in this space, this world, this as a subjective viewpoint, which you necessarily are, and you interact with and engage with the world, you could say things like, well, what's better? What's better in this instance? I held up two objects, and you have to say, well, what is it better for? What are your presuppositions? What do you bring to the table? You yourself, Bray in this instance, the long-haired fellow, in the center. For anyway, uh, I don't know why. That person will go and say something or rather is better, But there are reasons for why. There are reasons why you want to take a kayak boating, but you wouldn't want to take a grandfather clock. Now, grandfather clocks are quite good things to have. They're better in many respects, but not great for boating, as far as I'm presently aware. You'd have to show me a pretty peculiar grandfather clock. I think AI could generate one for you.
That sounds like a really good premise for like a children's book, like why you wouldn't take a grandfather clock to kayak or something
Actually,
yeah.
Bray, it reminded me of Smaug telling him, barrel rider.
Right.
I mean, yeah, like it.
I've read that book like 7 times. Yeah. So it comes back to the table of the best thing in life you can search for, or not. Sorry, that is itself an objective statement. It's stupid. The what I would help you with in terms of this question is, and what has helped me, is realizing that a lot of the time in your life you won't be looking for answers. You'll be looking for the right question. And this is one of those times where this just isn't a very good question, and it'll lead you off to finding, well, valuable questions to which you can derive actually meaningful answers. Anyway, that's mine.
Very good.
Yeah. Well, evening people, or whatever time it happens to be for you. I'm very glad to be here again, brothers and sisters. Well, what gives life meaning? I mean, Trevor, he's got it right whenever he blames us for being chronically in the middle on this sort of thing. But it's going to be all right. We're going to get through it. I would like to talk first about science and the nature of like its discipline, because it's always just a fine way to start. It's always a fine place to begin. And what all do I mean to say here? Religion can give you an answer to this question. What is the meaning of life? A couple other things can give you the answer. I won't go too far into it, but I would probably suggest that anything that gives an answer, especially a quick one, to the answer, what is the meaning of life, is probably a lie. So we should definitely be cautious. We should be skeptical by nature. and really challenge the ideas that are brought in front of us all the time. This one especially. Like I say, if something gives you an answer to the question, what is the meaning to life, it's probably the wrong one.
Hmm.
If one is given to you quickly, it is almost certainly the wrong one. And anyway, I would just like to point out that science is a discipline that cannot and it will not give you the answer to what is the meaning of life. We have to decide that. We have to get together and really wrangle up an answer to that question. We can use science as a guide, certainly, but it cannot give us an answer. And there's something very good to be said about that. It's a thought system. It's a system by which we gather knowledge that does not claim to answer that question. And it's really important. We can look at the data. We can, really get down to it and look at what kind of people we are and so on. But it can't answer that ultimate question. But in brief, I would like to answer the question, in this way, with something that probably not even Trevor could deny. Okay, uh, what gives meaning in life? Probably the things you put in it. In other words, the things that you fill your life with, and that includes, most especially, the people you put in your life. So that's probably what it's about. And so my hypocrisy knows no bounds. I've given a quick answer to this question.
We're starting real warm here.
Listen,
I like
at
it.
least you didn't ask for money.
Yeah. Now's the time when I say, oh Baba Kanda, and then ask for money. That's the big important part. Shameless plug. Put your comments in
This is
in
about when we
TikTok.
announced that we have
Yep.
like a Patreon now.
Yep.
Yes, we
Donate
are
down
working
below.
on the
Yes.
Patreon. Oh
Yes, fellows, please take your 15 seconds to tell us what the meaning of. Oh my
Yep.
gosh. Yeah, no, well said, both of you. And I'll jump in here and give my piece, and then we'll move on to a little bit more background before I start talking about particulars.
Mhm.
You can tell I'm excited. It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite subjects to
Yeah.
talk about.
Absolutely.
When we were back in college, I took every opportunity when I had a paper to write or some sort of presentation to try and tie in the overall ideas of existentialism and sort of what gives your life meaning, because I am quite literally in the field of meaning. Something that helped me finish college was taking these philosophy classes and realizing sort of that I wanted to be in the field of meaning. Maybe some more on that later. But like I was saying
I would just like
earlier,
to say real quick,
yeah.
Ray, if you think about like the nature of this podcast, and for those who maybe don't know, what is this, at least from my perspective? It's just an opportunity to come back, revisit these topics. A lot of them we visited before. Back in school,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really really fun to see where each of us
Go.
have
Right.
landed. You know what I
Our,
mean?
our weird manic episodes bring us to these weird, interesting places.
But y'all get
It's
what
so
I'm
fun.
saying? Like
You're
it's so
absolutely right.
fun. It's so fun to think about where Bray was
2 years ago.
6-7
That's right.
years ago,
Even further, yeah.
and go from there. It's
Mm.
now, of course, I know my position, better than anybody, and that's the most fun for me is figuring out where I've come from in the last 6 or 7 years. I mean,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
remember sophomore year, I got really I wrote papers on this. I was so convinced that life didn't actually exist.
Not to
Take
go
that.
off on too many, but just since we're sharing, I remember very particularly one of the earliest philosophy classes that I was taking. I was in Wiley Tower on whatever floor, surrounded by books at some little desk, and I was writing out some paper, and it was like some comprehensive rebuttal to all the arguments for God that existed at that
Oh my
point.
goodness, yeah.
And boy, I was in there. I was like
Mhm.
William Lane Craig, this is wrong,
It's
It
funny
was a
too.
time.
I'm reading The Blind Watchmaker by Richard
Oh yeah.
Dawkins.
Oh yeah.
Finally got up to it.
Hell yeah. What were we? Meaning of life. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, Ray
After
was
we
about
stop
to go in.
reminiscing here. So
Yes.
yeah, what I wanted to bring up here before we moved on to a little bit more Camus is actually some Camus, and that is, of course, one of my favorite quotes ever in philosophy, which is that it's somewhat paraphrased, but it's in the holy Bible of existentialism, none other than the myth of Sisyphus and other stories by Albert Camus, who is pretty much the most influential, if not one of the top three most influential philosophers of the mid 20th century, which is when existentialism really took off. It's one of the most recent majorly recognized philosophical movements, despite the fact that everyone who was labeled an existentialist pretty much refused to be labeled as that personally. So it's something we've sort of
It's
just
the point of existentialism.
prescribed to people,
right?
even though they almost all reject it. So Albert Camus wrote The Myth of Sisyphus, which, if you're not familiar, just Google it. At this point, it's become a meme in today's time, but all the better. So more people will be exposed to it. But one of the things that he says in the book when talking about meaning and absurdity, which is the sort of phenomenon in which man comes to terms with the fact that there is no inherent meaning in life. Now, of course, this is a position that not everyone necessarily holds. There are people that would say that there is meaning, or inherent meaning, perhaps, or some way to attain meaning in life. And that's probably a way that will, or a path that will go down here in just a second. But Camus would ultimately say that there is no inherent meaning in life, and that whatever, let me rephrase this. He would say that, backing up again here, let me frame this the right way. Camus also famously said in The Myth of Sisyphus that the only real philosophical question out of everything was the question of suicide. And what he meant by that is that whatever was preventing you from killing yourself after you realized that there was no meaning, or so to speak, no point, really, no higher meaning to living, whatever was preventing you from killing yourself once you were met with that information was your meaning for life. I've asked many people this question before when I talk about this, like, well, and I come across with it quite simply. I say, why haven't you killed yourself? And some people are taken aback by that. It's a very bold question to ask
any
of
good books
somebody.
lately?
Right. But when you kind of dilute it and take it at face value, it's like, well, man, why haven't I? And I can most people could probably name all sorts of things. Well, I have family, I have friends, I have a cat that needs to eat. I have all these things. Well, these are things that you care about, obviously, and so you don't want to see them go from your life, and you don't want to be gone from their life. So you stick around. Not like everybody's, sitting around with their finger hovering above the button, like, end myself. But, these things can happen, but it's something to consider. So yeah, I think this varies for a lot of people, what meaning means to them. And that's why I want to talk about something else from the myth of Sisyphus, which is the idea and the concept of the absurd man, which I know, Trevor, for sure you are familiar with.
Yeah.
Stephen, I can't recall. Do you know what I mean when I'm talking about the absurd man in reference to Camus?
So,
or the absurd men, so to speak?
It's kind of doing it again. Maybe we can cut this part out.
Oh yeah, we had a little bit of.
It had a little chop.
A little chop.
A little bit there. A little bit.
It's all right. We're here.
Okay. So Bray, you brought up the what man?
The absurd man.
The absurd man. Yeah.
And so, no. Short answer, no.
Okay, sure. So this is a great opportunity.
Any
go
chance
ahead, Trevor.
I gave a lecture on this once. It was for the philosophy. We ran out of things to do. I was quite beholden to do something every week, and I wanted people to show up. And I was like, shit, we have so much to talk about. I've been doing so much absurdism reading. Oh man, this is an aside, but I do want to mention this. For this class that we took together, Bray and we took a class in existentialism with a few others. I think Jake was there too. God damn.
Yeah.
But while we were there, we were given the syllabus, all that kind of thing before the class started, and I saw all the different readings that were mentioned, and on the very bottom of it, it just said Myth of Sisyphus, or The Myth of Sisyphus. I was like, okay. So I went on Amazon, I bought like a paperback, had it sent to me, and I read the book, completely oblivious to the fact that you're supposed to read the 9-page thing at the end that is also called The Myth of Sisyphus. I read the entire fucking book. And then the class started. Everyone was like, oh, what do y'all think about The Myth of Sisyphus? I'm like, I got some thoughts, man. And everyone else was like, just 9 pages.
Right.
But I will admit, I literally, you should, wait, can I, all right.
I mean, that is how it's structured, because the book starts with a bunch of essays, and then the actual little story isn't until
the very end. Y'all keep talking. I'll be right back. Hold on.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's something.
I know I need to read it, and I know
it really is.
Absurdism is something I need to, actually educate myself on.
All right, I've returned. All right, so this is my copy of The Myth of Sisyphus. You'll notice it's completely fucking earmarked, as much as you can earmark something. Like look at this shit. It's fucking. It's just literally the most and you should see the handwriting in there. Like, it's the most weird. Like fucking, just look at this. It's like a schizophrenic. The inside of it. It's like Finnegan's Wake. Finnegan's Wake was like a fucking philosophy book. It's fucking absurd.
Then he holds it up after all that, and he goes, "We still have no idea what the meaning of life."
Actually, I do. God, we got to be careful with this episode, because if you let me, I could talk about this for literally 4 fucking episodes. Like, it's such a good fucking topic. But
well, I mean,
anyway,
we're
the
going to revisit it.
Almost certainly, but we always say that. But this is one of those where I really think we should. So the absurd. So the question is, just as Bray posted in the book, why haven't you killed yourself, viewer? So why haven't you? Anyway, why haven't you done that? So it leads to a couple questions. So there are things you can do in reality when you realize that life is meaningless, or that there is no innate meaning to life. That is the initial first statement, or first part of the book. There are some things you can do when you realize that there is no innate meaning to life. You could you can kill yourself. B, more nuanced, you can kill yourself, italics, philosophically. That is to say, you can hide from this fundamental issue of life. You can this absurd feeling of things being completely, totally meaningless. That absurd feeling is equated to a bit like being in a desert with the sun blaring directly on you, and there's quite literally nowhere you can go. There is nowhere in existence where the magnifying glass of the absurd isn't directly on you. You are completely and totally absurd. What is it that you're doing? Oh, well, I'm working on this analysis for this project. I'm a noter. What are you doing that for? And you follow it back, and you quite literally completely meaningless.
This is the thought loop I get into every single time.
This is the absurd.
Every single time that I think about money, literally at all, I think about how, like, not stupid of an idea money is, but like how meaningless it is.
Oh, yes, yeah,
certainly. And when you get into like, well, how do I get more money? Like, it just gets. And then, like, you put all this thought into it, and you're like,
whenever you define money, and then you start framing your question as in, like, how can I get more of whatever I defined it as, type of thing.
So we gotta get our Jonathan Frakes gif in here. We made it up.
We made it up. Yeah.
We should actually start editing shit into these things. But
so real quick, Trevor, you said path A, kill yourself. Path B, go to the desert of meaning.
No. The desert of meaning. Well. Kill yourself philosophically.
Metaphorically.
So crouch yourself in things that are fundamentally false, but you feel better about it. Yeah. So you feel the nihilism.
Copium, Stephen. Copium.
Yeah, copium. So you feel the nihilism approaching. You
Can't cope.
feel the total terror, the anxiety, the worry, your entire world that you were raised with crashing down all around you. You realize that you're not going to be forgiven for your sins. That's the first thought you have when you first approach this. So that's, or at the very least, I'm trying now engaging with this in the same sense that I myself engaged with it. But it's a bit silly. It is, and again, this is why I could talk about this before episodes, because your first thoughts about it are incredibly silly. They feel really real at the time, but when you first engage this, not this book, but I just mean life, when you reach that point in adulthood, when you realize that all of the things that you thought were the determinants of meaning are no more, when you reach that point, things start to feel extremely anxious, worrying, and this book sort of this is how I haven't finished the full definition. So the third thing that you can do is exist with it, exist in the absurd, be an absurd quote man, be in that sweltering heated position, that point in the desert, that magnifying glass is upon you, no sun, no cloud in sight for this sun, it's on you, to exist in this space and to exist besides the fact that it is meaningless, and that existence is the only one available to you if you don't want to kill yourself philosophically. And that is the full assertion of essentially the first 30 or so pages of Myth of Sisyphus. The book, not the 9-page article.
Right.
Yeah. You can read that on your own time.
Right. Yeah, and if I can jump back in here, I'll talk a little bit more about what some of those are.
Yeah.
And the first one is obviously self-explanatory. Like, you're faced with the absurd, and a potential reaction is to kill yourself, and that you no longer exist. You no longer have to worry about the fact that you are searching for meaning in a meaningless world, or a world devoid of meaning. But obviously, Camus did not support this as a feasible or practical answer. The point is not to end up doing that. It is to, in fact, do the last of which Trevor said, which is to learn to exist violently, even with the idea of the absurd. But there are a few fun little bits in between those two, like Trevor also mentioned, where you distract yourself from the idea that, or the concept of absurdity. And some of those he's given names, and I'll save the best one for last. But the fun ones are in the order I have them here: the seducer, the actor, and the conqueror.
Mm-hmm.
Without spending too much time on them, we'll just jot them off go through them really quickly. The first one, the seducer, he compares this to Don Juan. If you're familiar with the novel, he travels around courting many women and having a good old happy time. I think of your local heathen when I look at this. Somebody's just going for that dopamine rush, just trying to go through the motions and get those chemical reactions off as much as possible.
Debauchery.
Debauchery, just
That's
absolute. Right. Yes. To distract yourself from the fact that there's no inherent meaning to any of this. We're just having a good time. Some may argue that this is the closest to just existing as a natural human being. In fact, if you think about, had we not developed all of this, we may still just be out roaming the whatever environment suited us best. Had we not evolved this way, eating, drinking, mating, and otherwise twiddling our thumbs. But now here we are. The next up is one that's incredibly relevant to me personally, which is the actor. I love the way that he describes this in the book as well. The actor is someone who seeks to enjoy the pleasures of many lifetimes in the span of one, by condensing all of these down into these roles and living them as faithfully as they can upon the stage. And it's one of the most ironic ones, in fact, in my opinion, because I believe Camus mentions in the Myth of Sisyphus book that no matter how hard the actor tries to experience all of these lives as in their lifetime, like eventually, for everyone, the show will close and the stage will, shudder. And eventually, no one will remember your name. As much stardom as you accumulate, one day, people may not know who Michael Jackson is. It might take a long time.
No. It's not that they may not. It's that they will not.
won't.
Okay,
Name a
Well,
person.
yes.
Name
Well,
a
yes.
concept.
Yes.
yeah.
This is one of those things. So talking about this actor thing. So I really like the way that Kim talked about this. Well, first off, when he talked about these three absurd variants, he first introduced it with the preface that these are just three examples I'm now giving you.
Right.
There are many ways to encounter it. And this one on the actor, he's very like specific about what type of actor he's talking about too. He speaks of a theatrical actor, something the audience may not be thinking of, but that distinction is quite serious or quite important to the overall premise. The former, like a let's stick with just like, let's say like a TV actor or a movie actor can put on this facade, this false idea that they'll be remembered forever, which I can assure you is not true. There will be a time when Elvis, Coca-Cola, everything will become nothingness. This is true. And this is one of those things that enter into your discovery of the absurd. That's what all of this is. That's what we're discussing. So that's that distinction there. A theatrical actor, as the latter, is someone who recognizes, in this sense, that no matter what they do, it's all meaningless, or it's all going to become nothingness. There's nothing you can do. Everything you do is essentially writing your hand in the sand or in the ocean, and like you write your name in the water. You see how it, like the T of the name just seems to flow into nothing before you can even finish the word. How frustrating is that? It's your expectations. Anyway.
All your sandcastles will be lost in time.
All your sandcastles now belong to us.
What's that lyric? And all the castles in the sand return to the sea eventually. Jimi Hendrix. I love that song. Little Indian brave being defeated on the night of battle.
It's all
such
connected.
A beautiful song. Well, goddamn. Anyway.
Yeah.
So that's that distinction there. Go on.
Yeah, of course. The last one of those three that he posits, and yes, good pointing out that these are not in any way limited. These are just examples. Again, let your mind run free with the many ways that people will distract themselves from this intense reality. The last being the conqueror, which is another similar attitude to the actor, in the sense that these people seek to make such a large impact upon society or the world as a whole that they will be remembered. And of course, as we've demonstrated, none of this will last forever, but there are figures in our history who may have successfully done this for now. Of course, eventually they will also be forgotten, whether it's Alexander the Great or some Tsar of Russia, or Hitler is a great example. That guy just refuses to go away, and probably will continue until somebody does something even more heinous than he and replaces Hitler as the go-to example for anything bad. But think of a politician, think of anybody you can that seeks to scoop up as much power as possible. It's a trope that writes itself, so to speak. But yeah, I think that the most interesting of all of the absurd men, at least as I call them, is one that we have not mentioned yet, and that is the people who will outright deny that there is no inherent meaning in our universe and our cosmos, our reality. These are the people who, when faced with the problem of absurdity, find themselves in the New Age philosophy section at your local bookstore, or sitting in a church pew, or any number of different religious practices. I think it's necessarily a conflict for someone who believes in a higher power to also accept that there's no inherent meaning, because if there is, obviously a higher being with some sort of creative hand or some sort of plan, then there's the meaning, there's the purpose there. If there is no higher being or creator, and this is just the universe, we've evolved this way and we're just here, after all, then surely there is no plan, no big P purpose going on in the background for us to discover, at least in the way that we're thinking. But Camus disagreed with these people. Camus was not a religious person that you'd think of like a Christian or something like that. So he obviously didn't accept those sort of arguments or those sort of beliefs, and so he was convinced that these people were wrong. And I'd have to agree with him, but that's another that's another subject for another time. I just wanted to kind of get a look at some of the different perspectives that exist in popular writing about sort of this idea of absurdity. But now that we've kind
I
of
like the
yeah, go
actor
ahead.
best.
The actor best.
Yeah.
I
So
think
there's a quote by George Martin, who said that the reader or the author gets to experience many lifetimes, and the one who does not read or write gets to experience only one. So you know he's versed in absurdism.
oh
You know
yes.
that. You need to look no farther than his characters to understand. You know, because I mean, a lot of them are trying to be actors. A lot of them are trying to be seducers. A lot of them are trying to be conquerors.
Oh yeah, and then that's what I was going to say there is that I think the actor has a little bit of an easy place for people to empathize with, because it's something we can all do, whether it is participating as a player or simply consuming a form of media, reading a book, watching a television series, going to see a movie. You become part of the narrative by consuming it. And so you live, if you're watching Dune 2, you're like, oh my God, you're walking out, you're like, oh my God, I'm Paul Atreides. I got to go, I've got to go, lead the holy war and all this stuff. And so it's one that's easily grasped by people.
I would like to also suggest that we could have at least a go at trying to defend the argument that there is meaning in life. And one of the things I'd like to bring up, something of return to what I was talking to earlier. For those of us who are just first encountering this idea of like this healthy nihilism, of this absurdism and so on, it should be said that I'm certain that the three of us are sympathetic towards you. What I mean by that, of course, is like we've all necessarily encountered these ideas at least a little bit, but to truly encounter them, to truly start working on these ideas and trying to figure them out. One thing that I've thought that people could use in defense of it, right? Like Bray said earlier, one of these paths is to just outright deny the argument itself. So science tells us that you, me, Bray, Trevor, we're all extremely individual kind of units of like life. We're very individual expressions of our genome, and in fact, there's a very 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 low probability that you would ever be born again. And that's just true. Like if we continue the species on for a great long time yet, you still wouldn't come back out exactly as you are now. If we just examine the probabilities. What do you guys say about that? Like that you're extremely individual. Is there any meaning just in that fact alone? That you're extremely unique, even.
Well, this is one of those things. It's really difficult. When you look for individuality, you will find ceaseless individuality, things that make you further and further and further more of that like the head of a pen of distinct and unique, and this harbinger of a new time and a new age, this person.
Like reading a fortune cookie.
Well, that's quite generic. I mean, if you're just looking into it, it gets very. You can, if you look for specificity, you will find ceaseless specificity. And the same is necessarily true for universality. I can, if I look at you, you know, if I can stare at you long enough, Stephen, in this instance, if I look at you long enough, I can find an endless. We could talk about this for episodes. Ways of which you are akin to and unilaterally common with the rest of the universe. You are the universe.
How many groups, how many sets do I fit into? That's what you're saying.
As many as you want.
Exactly.
And I think that's exactly what I'm saying. Well, you've listed a reason why one ought to look at oneself as an individual, and it's a valuable reason. But there is an endless plethora of reasons to see someone as individual, just as much as there is those of which that would make one see oneself as of the sum, or that is to say, that which emanates out of you, that feeling of your suchness is unilaterally shared across all things in the universe. You can find the sameness where you look for it. This is one of those things where it's really quite difficult to touch beyond like the meta of it, because we're quite controlled about the way that we think about things in this instance. And this is really all that we can talk about. Just I don't know if this is relatable to either one of y'all, but if you ever had one of these experiences before where you just get sort of caught in this recursive feedback loop of thoughts over and over and over again for hours, really worried about a thought that leads to a series of thoughts afterward. And then days or weeks later, you look back at it and you realize that series of thoughts were themselves completely fucking absurd. And I really needed to go take a nap. One of those kind of things. Things can seem quite real when you get into them. You can fall into a certain frame of reference or way of thinking. You and I and maybe Bray could really dive into the individuality of ourselves, and we could really see it. That's just one other way of encountering. It's just another way of running the run. It's just another thing that the three of us can go do for fun.
All right.
One, unless y'all got something, I wanted to say something about absurdism.
Yeah, sure. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, because I do want to move into a new area. So if you, yeah.
Well, okay. So I showed you the book. I showed you I've read that book several times. So somebody who doesn't know me, or maybe even many people who do know me, may think that I might be an absurdist, or that my opinions are the pole from which most of my opinions move are crouched within the ideas found within those pages or those books, or that frame of reference. Yeah. What I'm saying is many of you might encounter me in the way that you might encounter an absurdist. Like you think of me in those terms. I wish to dissuade you of that. I don't personally consider life to be absurd in that sense, in the sense of that realization that life is innately meaningless. Now, that realization happens, or at the very least it happened in this one iteration, being me. I did, in fact, encounter reality thinking that everything was absurd. I had that fall from grace, or that realization that there is no grace, that sort of feeling. That's how I felt about it. So there was a time in my life where absurdism was quite enticing, but the initial assertion, that realization that life is innately meaningless and there's nothing you can do about it, is, I think, a false start. And I don't think that's the way one ought to evaluate this sort of question. Meaning this: life is meaningless. Life is innately meaningless insofar as God just died. God just died. That makes life innately meaningless. That first feeling that God just died makes everything meaningless. That first realization is that. And that's what the 20th century in a lot of respects was. That feeling. And that's absurdism for you. However, after the dust settles and like you put down the knives, and you realize what or you think about what you've done, not realize, because you've realized it. But once you think about what has been done and you look around you, you realize that the meaning that you always had, was always present and continued to be. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. Your frame of reference changed, but you feel meaning. What I mean to say is this: we have this thought, this process of thinking, where there is this universe all around us, and then there are these actors looking inside of it. These human beings playing their roles, looking into the universe as these observers and interactors. I wish to dissuade you of that for the following reason: you are not in the universe; you are of the universe. You are an aperture looking into it. You are an aspect of it. You are one of its many faces. You are of this place. And for that reason, amongst some others, I mean to say this: insofar as you, and this comes right back to his initial or his final assertion, but approached it a different way. If I say that life is meaningful, then it is. And that's the end of it.
I appreciate that you talked about that in a way that I could really, really identify with it. Right? So I remember not too long ago, in the grand scheme of things, how I was going along life. Life was cool. It was mean and depressing, but I guess it was cool. And like God was a real thing. Like in the simulation software in my brain, God was like one of those bedrock principle type things. And I like how Trevor talked about it just now, about how big of a bottom falling out it is.
It is.
Whenever one raised in the Bible Belt, such as we are, comes to understand that none of this can be true. It's not it's not that it's like a matter of belief or something like that. It's set up so that it can't be true. And I like how you put that. Like, what would you do, in that moment? God just died. What now?
Right.
You know what I mean?
The
And
first
seriously,
thing,
I love how you said next. You said when the dust settles, you realize that you still have that same drive. You still have that same quest for meaning. It's just that now you're not being duped, and now you're not being made a fool out of. It's really important.
Yeah, the realization is that it was always yours. It belongs to you in that really deep sense.
That was one of the biggest things, Trevor, for me personally, on just like speaking about my journey, right? And I don't mean to use that in the cringe way of like everything's a journey now, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Really having to come to grips with it all, and understanding that I didn't change as a person except for the better, in losing the deity.
Lovely. So, listener, what do we do now that God has died and nothing means anything? What do we do in the face of that information? Well, I'll tell you what I do. What I do is I look around at the things that I care about. I look around at the things that grant me pleasure, give me a sense of accomplishment, that make me feel enlightened, and I pursue those things. I create my own meaning in my life, and I think most other people do that, whether or not they accept the fact that God kicked the bucket and we're all just hanging out, or not. So that's going to bring me to my third part of the discussion of the night, which is more particularly the question of the night, which is what gives your life meaning? You proper Trevor, you proper Stephen, me proper Bray. And I'll go first to kind of kick it off. It took me a while to kind of figure this out. Some people may not figure it out. There may not be one single answer, but I've figured out my answer. And so I think I'll share that tonight, and you guys can take it however you want if you want to go the same way. But
we should
I
even,
think,
Ray, just before you get going there,
yeah,
we should even think about like wrapping up with this. That'd be a good stopping place, is asking each of us like the specifics of what makes your life meaningful.
That's 20 minutes No, that's days. God damn.
Well,
We gotta
that's
be
what I'm
careful.
saying. Like
Well, it's
We
the
gotta be
spin-off
careful with
podcast where
this one.
Trevor just talks about the meaning of his
Yeah,
life for us
but
limited
Trevor,
run.
think of it as a writing exercise, right? Like you
Right.
have to do
Reduce.
it in 500 words or less,
Right.
Right.
And how
Still, it's
stupid,
funny. It's
how
funny.
You
I get it.
know, that's the only class I've ever emailed a professor and said, "Is it okay if I go over the word limit?" And Koski'd be like, "Just keep it reasonable."
because he knows everybody in there's impassioned. If you,
Yeah,
Yeah.
how
that's
are you taking philosophy and not
how the
impassioned?
fuck. Sir, people found a way. I can guarantee you.
Oh
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But
oh yeah.
yeah, the people in that class were like completely. They were searching for answers in the most desperate sense of the term.
Well, look,
It got really desperate.
I mean, I'm a physics and chemistry teacher, right? I know not everybody's in the room for physics and chemistry, you know. But what I do know they're in for is a free and fair education, right?
Mm.
And I keep my eye on my eye on that ball every day. It
Mhm.
really it helps a lot.
Right on.
All right,
So,
Brett, you were saying.
yeah. What gives my life meaning? Like I said, I did some hunting on this and had to put a lot of pieces together over the years. Um, I quick background. I ever since I was young, I have had a personal computer. Age of 4, I was, you know, getting around on the old PC, and that's kind of the only thing I knew anything about was being on the computer, playing video games, being creative, making little videos and stuff like that. Not a unfamiliar upbringing, I would think, for my age group. And so when I got to high school, getting ready for college, I did some stuff in middle school. Actually, I did some like robotics stuff while I was there. Didn't really do it. I never played sports in any grade school. I've never played a sport. It just wasn't for me. I even went into a little bit. I'll take that back. I did like basketball one year in like fifth grade, and we lost every game we ever played. Um, Still got a trophy though. Let me know your let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. We lost every
You're a
game of
fucking loser,
basketball in fifth
Bray.
grade, and we still got a trophy. So let me know your comments. I know there's a lot of really heated perspectives on that.
Discussion on
Anyways,
that.
We should do a
That's right.
topic idea about it.
participation trophies. That's the next topic.
If you
On
comment
the
down
agenda.
below, we'll send you a participation trophy. That's right.
But yeah. So when I got to high school, I still hadn't figured out. I'm a little bit of a late bloomer, I think, when it
Anything.
comes to
You still
participating in
haven't figured out
things.
anything.
No, okay.
I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying the quiet part out loud. None of us had it figured out. In
2
high
years
school.
into high school, it
It'd
took
be
me
bold to say that I figured
to.
it out up till this point.
Exactly. The wiser and wiser I become, the more and more I know nothing.
Right.
Ah.
But halfway into high school, I joined the theater department, and I fell in love with being on the stage and telling these stories. And then, of course, I went to college, and I was like, all right, it's time to make the big bucks. Got my computer science stuff in gear, and I spent a while doing that until I finally came back around after taking some philosophy courses throughout the years, and changed my major into the theater, into the realm of communications, because I realized that what I really enjoy doing is telling stories. And I kept asking myself, what is something that is fundamental to the human condition? What is something that is undeniably part of being a human being that we cannot escape, that people need even to survive? I've argued that stories and meaning, moreover, is the hidden building block of Maslow's pyramid. That once you have your food, water, shelter, societal needs met, you need something to fulfill a sense of meaning for yourself. Otherwise, everything else can fall apart, which is, in a roundabout way, what we've been talking about here today. So I realized that stories were what was really important to me. And I changed my major, and I got 2 degrees in theater. And here I am still looking for a job. No, but no, that is true. But I wouldn't trade it for anything else. I don't regret the decisions that I made because they
Love
are
you,
my
Bray.
decisions and they're
We
unique.
love you so
And
much, Bray. We'll
yeah,
find you a job. Just wait and see.
It's no, but listen, I realized that throughout history, one thing that has remained constant is that humans tell each other stories, and even some of the most fundamental positions that people take on the question of meaning is believing a story. To be literally true, that is, of course, but it's a story nonetheless that means so much to people that they will alter their lives to an incredible extent because of this story. And so that's what's important to me. I live to create meaning out of nothing, so to speak. I think that one of the best ways you can combat existentialism, or rather the overall idea that there is no inherent meaning, is to quite literally rebel and say, I'm going to create meaning even though there is none. I'm going to, not go gentle into that good night and just, this means something now. And we do it every day. Um, we when we read a book, when we watch something on a screen or on the stage or anything, we accept rules that we made up about what's going on to elicit some sort of higher purpose or meaning behind what's going on. And we love it. We can't get enough of it. I mean, entertainment is, if you took everything from film, movies, TV, literature, all these different forms of art, they comprise a massive, almost incalculable part of our lives and our GDPs, our everything. It is crucial, like I said, next to getting all of our basic needs met. It is one of the first things we jump for afterward, if not in the mix for some people. Some people, it's a very serious deal, and meaning is an incredibly deep-rooted part of their lives. Like I said, for religious people, I don't agree with the religious ideas, but you can clearly see how important these narratives are to some people. So yeah, I eat it up. I can't get enough. I just recently I finished. What have I been doing? I have hesitated for some reason to bring up video games, which are the new medium of our time for storytelling. Some of them are atrociously bad, and yet there are some that are incredible. I'm almost done playing Cyberpunk 2077, and I realized that it's one of the best games I've ever played in my life. The narrative is so good, the immersion is so incredible. I feel like I'm there. I watched the anime on Netflix and cried. I mean, it's incredible what we are capable of as human beings, the sort of emotional reactions we can elicit within ourselves just by making shit up, like, and telling people, suspend your disbelief, pretend for an hour and a half that what you are seeing is real, and that the true part is that it is a reflection of our very lives, our very conditions. I think it's our special creation is the ability to create meaning out of nothing and give ourselves a reason to go on in face of the absurd. That being said, I want to pass it along and see what your thoughts are and things like that.
Just a quick comment. I mean, you know, I deeply appreciate how Bray puts all of that.
Mhm.
You know, as a writer, um, I think about it all the time, right? Like there has to be some at least little bit of narcissism within me to think that like other people want to see this crap. You know what I mean? Because like
You're
seriously,
absolutely right.
it's just like Bray said. You know, we kind of make up these systems, right? That follow different rules, and we're totally fine with that, and it's amazing. It's very good. I think
Mhm.
I think it relates a lot to what my answer is, and I'll go ahead.
Hmm.
Um, what gives my life the most meaning, like to me, um, without sounding, like too over the top, I would honestly and critically say truth. And what I mean by that is, um, I can think of anything that elicits an emotional response from me, uh, and it probably has to do with the truth. And let me explain. Um, for example, I get very bitter towards unjust situations, and to me, it's like it fits through a lens of, okay, is that true or is that false type of idea. What really happened, sort of thing, when it comes to justice, particularly. But if someone is in an unjust situation, it's because of a contradiction, it's because of some falsehood down the line. I really, really think of it in those terms as well. Science is the best tool we have to get at the truth, and I'm a scientist, and I love it. I cannot get enough of it. I was just talking to this about to some students. I was talking about um, when I first wanted to be a scientist, and I told them, 6 or 7. They said, "No, there's no way, no way." And I said, "Okay, just watch." And I called up my mom, like right in the middle of class, and I asked her, "When's the first time I told you I wanted to be a scientist?" And she rattled off about 6 or 7. I mean, that's who you're dealing with. Like,
Ah.
um, I'm obsessed. I'm totally and rightly obsessed about it, and it's because it gets at the truth of the matter. And why did I become a teacher? Because I'm able to communicate this verifiable truth to others. Um, in a cult situation, I was groomed to be a minister, a demagogue, and I'm so happy to have turned that training into something so much more useful, than spreading cult nonsense. I mean, it's a really, I consider myself more fortunate than any of my friends, and that's the way I look at it. To crawl out of a hole so deep to get even just where I am right now, and I have next to nothing. I have almost no worldly possessions. I don't have a house, yet. I mean, that's down the road. That's one of those things that are meaningful to me. Um, okay, and truth. I want to talk about Bray's topic again. As a writer, I think of stories as a way to communicate the truth through a lie, if that makes sense. Kind of like what the how did they put it on V for Vendetta? I want to make it clear. I
Oh.
said that before thinking of this line, but
Vociferously pontificate. Yeah.
yeah, but she said politicians uh use art. No, no, I can't remember now. I can't remember. But
Oh
anyway,
man, yeah.
I would definitely like to leave it there. Stories
Mm.
to me are a way we communicate the truth through very, very um
Mm.
artistic, beautiful, and wonderful lies.
It's a good way to end. Well,
Here you go, Steven. I want to make sure we got this in here from V
Yeah,
for Vendetta.
all right.
My father was a writer. You would have
right.
liked him. He
Yep.
used to say that artists use lies to tell the truth while politicians use them to cover the truth up.
Yep.
There we go.
Yep.
That's a very pretty way of saying it. Hmm. All right.
Trevor.
Well, god damn.
And now catch us in the new spinoff, Four Mortal Coils.
Catch us on the next
we
episode.
make
of...
a second podcast with
Right.
blackjack and hookers.
Just yeah.
Well,
What are you going to do about the second podcast?
Right.
What day are you free for that one? So, gives your life meaning. So, I guess I could start this one with a story. That's funny. Yeah. So here's my we're all gonna borrow from Bray here because it's just like you
Yep.
reference story. Everything's a story. God damn, everything's a story, and everything's
Everything's a
truth
narrative.
too, or at the very least, everything you can see in the nuance of truth, or moving towards wanting to see what is. You know, these are in a way kind of like characters, like faces that I innovate, like or innervate, like the word, like kind of like filling like energy or wind filling a glove, or a soul filling a body. I become embodied by these feelings of wanting to just see it for whatever it is. I just want to see it. I just want to see it. I want to see truth. And the same is true for stories. I want to, from nothingness, I want to make meaning. I mean, you said that a second ago, not verbatim, but you said that, and I was like, God damn, that's you can write that down. That's something that should be written somewhere. But these are faces that one interfaces, and this is quite difficult for me. I'm sure both of y'all would know that. For me, a lot of it is just it's a face, and then another face, and then another face that I put on every other second. I have a new idea. I have a new sudden thought of, well, what if we try this? Or what if I be this person for a second? And now I'm referencing almost the actor sense. I feel
It's just the ADHD, you know.
maybe so. My brother, you should see him. It's ridiculous. But
talk about what makes people unique. Well, it's I don't know. We may have found the link.
Yeah. So let me go to the actual story. So around, this might get personal. Around high school, I started to have this feeling. Later on, my family or my sister would call them auras. This feeling that I've been here before, the deja vu sort of feeling. I feel like most people have felt it. It's this sensation that whatever it is that's currently happening, there's something just so familiar about it. If I had only just lingered there for a second longer, maybe I'm seeing something. There's something that's happening right now. What's happening? What is this? What's going? And then I would pass out completely. I would lose consciousness, and I wouldn't be for a moment, and suddenly I would come to on the floor. I'm not a good faller. I discovered this. I'm not good at falling. I don't fall well, and I would come to, and I would have to ask myself, well, what was that? My whole life up until that point, we're talking about a high school kid here, was just wanting to be normal, just wanting to fit in. I don't know about you, listener, either of y'all. I don't know about you, but I was one of those kids that tried so hard just to be unnoticed. I was one of those.
Me
I
too.
was very overweight. Today I'm a good 190, but at the time I was, at my worst, I was around 267 pounds, 270 pounds. That was about my weight. And I would wear several shirts. I would do whatever I can just to walk along and just don't see me. I swear to God, just don't see me. And that was my life up until that point. And you suddenly encounter the realization that you are fundamentally not a normal person, and that uh, shattered that person. That person that was there. He wasn't sure how to encounter that, you know. And from there, I had to learn how to put the pieces together. And I'll tell you, the amount of random stuff you can find to do to fill your time. The amount of random stuff, I swear. I used to have Netflix and all this kind of stuff on my phone because I would listen to it because I couldn't bear the silence. I couldn't bear it. I couldn't be there alone. Because as soon as I was, that was when I was there. And I couldn't encounter that person, and it was up until this point, at least, the hardest point in my life. And the seizures, they got worse. they got more profound, they got more serious, and it came to a mainstay. And this story I'll share with you now. I was walking to, or I was taking a shower actually. A lot of these happen in the shower. How weird is that? I
It's
was
the
taking a
shower
shower.
thoughts.
God fucking damn it! You're absolutely right. Funny as that is, you're absolutely right.
It's true.
I was in the shower, and not at my own shower. The freshman year, I was at this place called Lambright. Anyone who knows here, you two know, but like most people won't. It's this gymnasium at the college we went to, and I was in one of the community showers. Terrible, and I faint while I'm in there, or I have a seizure, I should say, and I lose consciousness, and I come to a second later, and there's blood all over the floor, all over the porcelain. The porcelain's there, water's striking, and this blood is flowing directly into the drain. And I'm looking around, and I feel my head, and it's in my eyebrow. It's just there. So I get up, and this part's kind of funny. I put on like my old pair of gym shorts, because I didn't know what was going on, and I walk outside and I walk up to this lady at this front desk. It's so funny at this gym. And while I'm walking there, this is where it gets funny. You ever see those toddlers that like hold hands together and they're walking together, all holding hands, and the rule is you have to hold hands because if not, one of you might get lost. That's the rule, and they're all hold the thing. So then I'm walking towards this lady at the attendant, and there are these like 12 kids holding hands, all walking. And then one after another, like ducks in a row, went like that directly at my bleeding face. They all look at me like like I'm a zombie or some sort of like poltergeist. And I walk up to this lady, and I look over at her, and I tell her, I don't know what to say. I don't even remember what I said, but I remember it ended with, "I'm gonna call 911." So there you go. An ambulance shows up. And from there they load me into this emergency vehicle. And I keep on saying over and over again, like, I can't afford this. And it's true, I couldn't. I didn't have $20 to rub together at that time. I didn't have anything. And they were loading me up into this emergency vehicle, saying over and over again, "Hey, it's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. We're just gonna put you in this emergency vehicle." Later on, I would discover that they do, in fact, it did in fact matter. Anyway, they took me to the hospital. This guy, he sews me shut. Um, I could keep on telling this story. I'm not going to. I'm not going to waste your time. But they patched me back together, and I got this perfect Harry Potter zigzag scar on my forehead now, and it's been there ever since. And most of y'all can't see it on the screen. I'm in 4K here, but like I don't think you'd be able to see it. It was really obvious when I first got it. Over time, it's gotten less noticeable. But if I were to come in and mark it just to show you where it was, it is literally a perfect Harry Potter scar. It's not even funny. Like when I first met up with my mom right after the accident, we went to this restaurant together, a place called 54th Street. We sit there together, and like we don't talk at all on the way in. Like she gives me a hug. We meet outside in our cars, and she gives me a hug. We walk inside. We sit down. We haven't really talked about anything. And this waitress walks up. She's looking at the menus, and she passes one to my mom. She gives one over to me, and she goes, "Harry Potter." And I didn't know what to say, but anyway, what does this all have to do with anything? So I had to encounter that. I had to encounter the fact that I wasn't normal. That was the first thing. And then from there, I don't know. I put the pieces together in such a way that something happened. I told this once to a friend. I'm not sure if he believed me, but at some point after that moment, I started to have like this like song stuck in my head, and it was always there. You can find it. It's Bolero. You can find it on Spotify.
Bolero.
London.
Da, da, da. I
Yeah,
know. I know that one. Yeah.
that I had encountered reality in such and such a way, and this is where it comes to the meaning moment, the meaningful moment. I had put the pieces together after that in such and such a way that I had reached a meaningful thought, a thing that I could do. I could work as hard as I can to do as much as I physically could in this life until it kills me. That's what I can do. I can do that. You can choose to do that, and I chose to do it. Or at the very least, I saw in my mind's eye that person going off and doing something, and I thought, I don't know what to do with my life, but I kind of want to be that guy.
Yeah.
It's this ideal self, or this sort of this focal point from which my entire character derived its pole, its directionality, its meaning. I had saw it for an instant. It had it appeared in my mind as this person that one could be if they chose to, and this person that goes out there and just does all of these things. And not that they do anything formative per se, not that they change the world, but just that they do so fucking much, try so hard that it kills them. And a bit like that shitty song, I want something beautiful to die for, to make it beautiful to live. Queens of the Stone Age. That's right.
I don't know that one.
It's a stupid song, but you'd love it. So there was a focal point in my mind of it's not like, oh, I should go do that, as much as it was like, get your pens and papers, we're writing shit down, you're doing everything you can, you will not spend any time. And from that point, I had been unable to do much of anything other than work. I couldn't play video games anymore. I got rid of all of that. I couldn't. I don't like watching television. Or the very least, I'm telling you from the way that I engaged at that moment. I've changed a little bit since, but I'm telling you the way it was then. I had encountered reality differently, and all of this is not me choosing to do it per se, as much as this thing coming alight, this sentiment that I could only best represent by that song Bolero. It was always on my mind. It was always there, and that's just what I was for a while, and it eventually brought me to California. And yeah, so if you want to speak of meaning, I could tell you what I want to do, and that's kill myself.
But
I guess I'll
in the long term, you know.
I
Right.
want to be Sisyphus. I want to be
Listen,
crushed.
he's the quote that I used to quote all the time from 2001. He's like, all I can ever hope to do is utilize myself to my maximum potential. You know, that's what that sounds like to me.
I think in the grand scheme of things, that there are millions of iterations of mankind upon this earth throughout history. Billions of iterations, each of which trying to do something, trying to act somewhere, get familiar, or cause an effect that is a net positive gain on this world, or if you want to be vain, be remembered. One of those kind of things. There are millions of iterations of people trying to do just that. And I would rather die trying to do that than kill myself. And that's essentially where my realm of consciousness went at that time, and more or less fed into the person I've become. That would be the short answer to the question.
Well, thank you for sharing. It's very, it was an enlightening thing to learn about, you know. I can't remember if you had shared that story before,
If
that particular one.
If you can't find commonality in Trevor's story, then you probably, I mean, I'm not going to say you've wasted your time by any means, but like, if you can't find anything common in Trevor's story, then you probably haven't done enough, you know.
You haven't
gone
unlocked
out
that area of the map yet.
yeah, you haven't gone out and like done enough stuff, you know.
Well,
But yeah, and I don't know if maybe I could be mistaken, but I based on what you just said and some things that I know that you've said before, both on and off the podcast, it sounds to me like one of the things you're trying to say is that you would like to experience as much as possible before you die or in the process of dying, if I can be so bold to say something like that. Like, you know, like we're all
Authentic
dying.
experience.
I want as much authentic as is experience as I can get while I'm here.
It's all so beautiful. You know? All of it is. If you've ever wept for something, you haven't really. No, you learn so much more about love when you felt that sort of pain, and that's as weird as it gets. That's beautiful, and that's it's all beautiful. I'd love to see all of it. I won't, but it's all
Right.
beautiful.
Well, we try to do as much as we can while we're here, right?
Certainly.
That's how I feel a lot of the time. Is like there's definitely things that I look at and I'm like, yeah, I'll be happy. I'll be fine if I die
Mm,
tomorrow and I've never done this. Like
right.
sometimes I think about skydiving and I'm like, not gonna bother me if I, die and I've never jumped out of a plane. Like
Uh,
on either side of the coin of death, whether or not I pull this, thing where it doesn't work, I might be okay. If I never go to the bottom of the Marianas Trench or whatever, I'll be fine. But there are certain things that I'm like, man, I would really like to do this before I die. And the likely thing, as sad as it is that many of those things I will probably never accomplish. Like, something as crazy as, oh, well, first of all, I know I'll never go to every country in the world. That's just, at this point, it's just really not going to happen.
That's not
But
true. You're
I
quite
could
young.
see, I could see myself going to very many. I
Hmm.
could definitely see myself going to all 50 states, for example. That's an achievable goal. If
well, so
you,
like, there's something I
but
tell students and now listeners as well. Our fourth mortal coil this afternoon. You should not set big, huge goals, right? That's not how life works. Life is not a sprint; it's a marathon.
right,
Okay,
So,
so
hmm,
you straight up need to quantify big goals into small, actionable packets. I
yes,
mean, like, for
but
real.
you still certainly should set large goals. That's how I feel.
Well, no, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you should setting a large goal should be more to the point of like setting a direction. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, you shouldn't look at this monumental task and say, I must do this. Like, that's the worst thing you
mm-hmm,
can do. You should set small, actionable plans that lead you to that end goal,
right,
one piece at a time.
I like for me, it's like I see this non-actionable goal as sort of a a pivoting point from which all my actions can find themselves. Like
Well, yeah.
I
So,
do
like,
think that
Trevor,
they're important
for
in that
example,
sense.
like, um, I'm not trying to, toot my own horn or anything like that, but I really believe that the biggest cause for like teachers that I work with hating their jobs is not keeping their eye on the big picture.
Mm.
Um, I have taken personal responsibility for educating a whole bunch of people, right? Pretty much everybody in the building. That is a non-actionable goal. That is not something I can accomplish, right? That's just the direction we're going. And I realize that it takes a whole bunch of people to do that, for example. That's just the direction that we're going, you know. But my
Mm.
actionable plan is to set a goal and get there for my classroom and so on.
right,
Um, I really think there's a lot of benefit to understanding that.
Mm.
Talking about the myth of Sisyphus, talking about how, like, you've got to enjoy the boulder. I mean, like,
yes,
you've got to enjoy the boulder at least this much. Even if you hate it a bunch, if you enjoy it this much, you've got something to look forward to.
right. And I know I want to get us to some closing remarks here as we can approach the hour and a half mark here, and so I'll go first here and start bringing us to a close. All of this conversation here at the end reminds me of a book I've shared in our Discord, some stuff by this guy already, but it feels incredibly relevant, especially with the mention of the boulder. Um, it was written in the 50s, late 50s, I think, was it published, or sometime in the 50s, by John Cowper Powys. And the book is called In Spite of, and it's all about his idea of this philosophy of life, in spite of multiple different things. And I think the gist of what it boils down to is a method of being happy or being content in spite of all of these different things. And he talks about, in spite of uh, heresy, like in spite of this religious nature of people, or in spite of madness, like in spite of being, secretly crazy, but don't let everybody know, or in spite of any number of things. And we could say that one of these is particularly in spite of absurdity. Just making your own meaning in spite of the fact that there is none. Um, or he talks about even a lot of things like work. Like, even if you just absolutely hate that boulder that you're pushing, if you just force yourself to enjoy some small part of it, then you can get by. Like we've discussed before, if you can see an end goal in sight, that does wonders for the brain in recognizing the ability to go on. I think I'm almost done reading the book. The most recent part that I read was In Spite of Madness. And he is talking quite literally about people who may be
Are not
mad in the
well.
sense that, yeah, but I think he takes a broader stance, and he's like, if you're just fucking crazy, then like the best thing you can do is live in that little world for yourself and make a habit of letting nobody else know about it. Like, don't tell anybody.
Damn, all right.
Just live in your truth and your reality. When I think about that, I think about, as we go along in our lives, we are each crafting a narrative, whether we accept it or not. Like, you are writing the story of your life every second of every minute of every hour of every day. And that can be whatever you want. You can make it up. If you are some, time traveling pirate on the run from the people you've wronged, and you're, fucking live that shit. Like, be the, you know, time traveling pirate. Or if you are, a secret agent, and you're like live that as much as you can, at least to the point where it doesn't impact other people in a serious manner. Like don't be a conspiracy
Well, so
theorist, but I mean, like,
Bray, like seriously, you're talking about being a writer, you know?
right,
I mean, so like we should all have creative outlets. But brothers and sisters, if you do not, find a lot of like happiness from doing creative outlets, then what Bray's telling you to do is don't do that.
right. I think it's part of, I have yeah, I had a thing. I was looking through my notes app today, and I saw, like, I'll jot down all these little things, or if I see something and I want to jot it
Yeah.
down. And one of them that I saw today at lunch was, the creative adult is the child that survived.
Yes.
And that really means a lot to me, in the sense, I mean, like, you could be doing anything. You could be at the Walmart when you were a kid, but to you it was, you were in the kingdom of whatever. Or I think the best contemporary example is it was like the memes that are like, my toys in the bathtub, and it's like the lore. It'd be like D-Day Normandy
Yeah.
Beach or something.
No, so
Oh.
like once again, Bray, like you're speaking my language here, Um, sometimes I wonder how much, why so much of my imagination like lasted, right? In the very bad environment that I came up in, like how did it
Mhm.
survive? And then of course, I've had the thought of, oh well, Steve, that's escapism, and your neuroses are showing,
Oh,
but whatever. I mean, it makes me
I
happy.
I would want
Right.
to say one thing about this. So on our Discord, there's this person that recently joined, like one of our audience members, and like right after our last episode where we talked about AI and like automation taking over, the question was posed at some point in the Discord. Well, what do you do when all of this is? What do we do with our time? All these people, all of these lives lived. Like, what do we do with our time? And this person, whoever they were, they popped in with a reply and said, I just want to be a child again. And I thought that was really beautiful and very succinct.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of nails what you two were sort of encapsulating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does.
The
Yeah.
finishing
Well, guys,
remarks.
do you have
Yeah.
any more closing remarks? Mine was basically live vicariously through your imagination, and the ability to just create whatever narrative you want about anything, as long as it's, safe.
Mm. when you realize that meaning wells up from within, it's not bestowed upon you. It's something that you always had. You realize that there's something really profound and powerful. The same sort of welling up sort of feeling there. I want to encapsulate behind that word powerful. This welding up, building and building. Comes to all of that feeling. There's so much power that it comes to a declaration. Declare something. It's yours.
Declare attackers.
That's a great way to exit there. I like that.
Oh man. So, people, you have to love life, right? At some point, and I speak for myself, but hopefully for my other two, fellow hosts here, we're really not trying to like make up shit and then tell it to you, right? We're really not trying to like sound wise or anything. We're really just trying to tell you what we know.
We're three chumps. Like we're going.
Yeah. I mean, we're three hominins.
Yeah, just today.
Grasping at
just
meaning.
today.
Yeah.
Somebody put in a stinky comment. I loved it. It was, so they let anybody make a podcast now?
Yeah.
I sent them one reply. One word.
Yes.
Yes.
But I mean, straight up, people. You have to. We've said this before. You've got to get out there and find meaning. And I want to talk about a special someone. Or at least you're very special to me if you fit this bill.
Mm.
If you're going through life and you actually think of the responsibilities of life as part of it, and like you enjoy them, good for you. All right, like genuinely, I in my personal life, I'm surrounded by so many people a bit more hedonistic than me. I mean, just kind of willing to just go out there and do whatever the hell pops in their head, And that's not me. For me, there's kind of a plan. The economy's not helping that plan, but it's okay. We're gonna make it. I want kids. I want responsibility. I want the responsibility of taking care of an intellectual product type of thing. I want those things, and it's not even necessarily that they make me feel good or warm feelings. It's just like a duty, if that makes sense. I feel a very big sense of duty to this species. I mean, like I've even listened to really really big authors like Brandon Sanderson talk about things like every hero needs a village, and they do. But something that I hear and I've always cringed at a little bit is when authors say no real hero fights for like mankind itself, and that's true too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I fight for mankind or any such BS as that, but I am saying that like I want this enterprise to work out. The science that is the human enterprise. I want it to work out. It would be nice if something worked out. And if that something is the species, then great. But anyway, long story short, you have to go out there, you have to find it, and if one of those is responsibility, then take heart. You're in good company. If one of them is more of a hedonistic desire, just try it. As long as you're not hurting anybody, just try it, people. Try it twice. How are you gonna know it, without trying it twice? Whatever it is,
Oh,
I'm
no,
serious.
yeah.
Try it twice. As
This is-
long as you're not hurting somebody, and as long as you're not hurting yourself in like the long term, just try it. See how you like it.
This was me the other day. I was playing Fallout 4 on stream, and I came across a quest where you had to either side with the saints or the sinners. And to be brief, the saints were a religious cult forming in the Commonwealth, and the sinners were a brothel on the corner. And I ended up siding with the sinners, of course, because I was like, look, the bombs have dropped. The people are sad. Let them have their fun, you know? Like just
What's wrong?
they're
What's
not
wrong
hurting
with the
anybody.
wasteland saloon? You know.
Right. Oh my goodness. Anyways, this has been the Four Mortal Coils podcast. You, of course, in the audience, our listener, being our fourth coil tonight. Thank you for joining us. And as always, your input, your comments are welcome on our short form posts, on our long form posts, and always in our Discord, which you can find through our profiles and whatnot.
Links down below if you're on YouTube. Spotify, get
Yes.
fucked.
Spotify, you're on your own.
I'm not sure what to
yeah.
do for Spotify. Fuck.
Thank you guys for joining us, and I don't know what do we always say now?
Take
The
care of
villain
each
Excellent
other.
to each other.
Be excellent
Yeah,
to one
be
another.
excellent to each other.
Do
There you
good. Enjoy your narrative, and we will see you on the
Wonderful.
next
Party on.
episode.
Party on.